Okay, I think we're recording. Okay, hi there. This is Chan, and I will be presenting to you about the interview that I did with entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur that I interviewed is actually my father. In his early life, my father has grown up in a small village in Wanzhou, in Sichuan province, where his family was not wealthy at all. He told me that he didn't get to graduate from elementary school because the school requires 10 yuan, which is about 2 Canadian dollars for his graduation certificate. Because the family was too poor and couldn't afford the certificate, in the end, my father didn't get to go to school after elementary school. Then, at the age of 16, my father took the train and went to the northwestern side of China, the province called Xinjiang. He first started working at a decoration company as a material clerk. While working at the decoration company, my father realized that the wooden furniture is the top trend at the time, as my grandfather used to be a carpenter. With the skills with the skills my father learned from my grandfather, he decided to build up a factory with my mother. Um, where the factory is mostly focusing on building wooden furniture, such as wooden doors, chairs, desks, tea tables, etc. However, there was a financial crisis that happened in China between 2005 and 2006, which heavily affected my father's company, and it unfortunately it went bankrupt. Then my father decided to go to Kazakhstan to start from the bottom again. So my father started as a car mechanic for the first couple years in Kazakhstan. Then later on, he found out that most of the cars in Kazakhstan are extremely old because people are too poor to purchase new cars. Then he decided to open up a dealership and importing and selling Chinese cars. So here are some pictures that I took back when I was in Kazakhstan. We first bought the land and built up the first car dealership on the left, which is over here. As we were mainly targeting the low and middle class in Kazakhstan, our sales were doing extremely well for the first year. With the success of the first year, my father decided to expand his dealership business by purchasing the empty land right next to our dealership, and the plan was to build another dealership and sell other Chinese brand cars. However, during the year of 2016, no one expected that the Kazakhstan currency tenge had a huge inflation from 138 tenge for one USD dollar to 366 tenge for one USD dollar for USD dollar. Yeah, this was like a huge bomb to our car dealership business, and we had to. My father had to increase the price of the cars in tenge to match up the value of in USD. Then people start having difficulty affording buying cars, and the requirement and it became very difficult for customers to get approved to get a loan from the bank. As the sales were extremely bad, we had no choices other than pause the car dealership business. And luckily, as we already built up the platform and the connections, we quickly found our way out. We quickly found our way out and shift our business from car dealership to working with a mining business. So what happened is that there's a Chinese mining corporation that bought land in Kazakhstan, and we're now working closely with them. All right. Let's talk about my father's cultural values and his role model. So here are some of the values that my father always tells me. Self help, it's better than help from others. Which means that it's always better to gain the knowledge for yourself and to get the skills for yourself than going out and ask someone for help. And the second one is don't be discouraged when frustrated. Sometimes things are not always going the way that you wanted, but you should not you should never be discouraged, and you should always keep doing what you've been doing. And the third one is don't get carried away when you achieve something. Um, so what he's trying to say, what father is trying to say is that don't get too cocky, and no matter how good you are, there's always someone does it better than you do. And on the right, it's my father's role model. His name is Li Kaixin. Li Kaixin is also a self-starter who who started his own business all the way from zero. Mr. Li was born in 1928 in Chaozhou, a coastal city in the southeastern part of China. Mr. Li was forced to quit school when he was 12 years old and flew to Hong Kong with his family to avoid the periods of war. Short, Shortly thereafter, his father suffered from disease and passed away in Hong Kong. Before Miss Li was 15, he had to carry on the responsibility of providing for his family, and then he found a job a plastic in a plastic trading company where he labored 16 hours a day. By 1950, his hard work and his pursuit of excellence had enabled him to start his own company. Um, from manufacturing plastics, Mr. Lee led and developed his company into a leading real estate investment company in Hong Kong, and and that was listed on Hong Kong Stock Exchange in 1972. So Mr. Lee has a very similar childhood and a career life as my father's, where they both didn't get a chance to pursue a, a better education, as well as they both still climbed up from the bottom to success with their hard work and pursuit of excellence. And next one, so how did my dad make use of the resources? So from the conversation with my father, he told me that connections and networking are probably the key to all the non financial resources for him. During the interview, he asked me a question, and I found that quite interesting. And the question was that if I get a $5,000 for rent each month, and there are two options for me to choose where to live. The first option is it's a cheap but decent place. It's a cheap and decent place, but where the people around you are all 9 to 5 employees in the city. And the second one is luxury place like Beverly Hills in LA, where you spend most of your $5,000, but but you're gonna be but where you can find all the wealthiest neighborhoods. Then my answer to the question was that I would find the cheaper place to live and save out the rest of the money so I can invest into something else, like invest into something else like snowball rolling. Um, then my dad laughed at me and told me that saving money and investing into something else is definitely not wrong. But imagine if I lived in a place where But imagine if I live in a place where people are just 9 till 5 everyday employees, my social circle would just be around them as the same level as theirs. But if I live in an expensive and luxurious place, my social circle will be completely different, where I can meet people with higher incomes and wealthier, as well as if I get to hang out with them, if I can build up networking or connections with them, uh, w- uh, I will be receiving the information that are way more valuable and effective than just the normal employees. Um, he also mentioned that interpersonal skills are very important to be able to establish networking with people and have connections with them will build up your fortune. Um, More specifically, not only just to have a connection, but think more about how you can utilize the networking and the connection to benefit your business ideas. And there are a lot of obstacles that happen during the creation of the dealership, and I will talk about the three biggest obstacles that my father has met. So the first one is the language barrier. As my father didn't get a chance to pursue any further education, he said he said it was very difficult for him to communicate with the people in Kazakhstan. He used to hire a translator and take the translator with him all the time. But then he slowly realized that sometimes the translator cannot express his words as exactly as the way he wanted. A good example would be when he's having a business dinner with the local company, with the people from local company, and when they are having a negotiation about the business plan. My father would like to state his opinion with a solid attitude, and he wants the translator to tell the people with exactly same words and the tone as he had, but the translator the translator would always narrow down the words and the tone that my father uses because the translator was too scared to do so, which really frustrated my father sometimes because he wouldn't be able to express his words and the attitude as the way he wanted. To overcome this problem, my father fired the translator and started learning Russian by himself. And it was very hard for him at the beginning, but after years and years, he now can speak fluent Russian. Um, the second one, the second one is the heavy corruption in Kazakhstan. Corruption is corruption is a really huge thing in Kazakhstan. Uh, where whenever my father wants to win a bite for the large project, the people who are in charge of the project would always ask for a huge amount of kickbacks, and they won't let you win the bite if you don't pay them enough. So whenever this type of things happens, my father would always try to find the boss of this manager, the supervisor of this manager, and then discuss the business plan with this person instead of the corrupt manager. The last one is finding a good team and the right people to work for him. My father said that finding a good team and the right people work for him has been the biggest obstacle throughout his entire business. We used to hire local people as our employees in our dealership, and there's one thing in common about them is that when the first day they are employed, the first thing they think is not about how they can generate profit for this company, but more of how they can get money from my father, from this firm. We used to have a sales manager who is in charge of all the sales contracts for all the cars. One day he actually stole one of our cars by secretly making a fake contract and imitating my father's signature. Then he even drove the car out of the dealership. Luckily, my cousin noticed it, and we quickly called the cops. As I mentioned, as I mentioned that the corruption in Kazakhstan is really big thing. The cops were putting no effort into catching this man until we actually paid the cops under the table. So, um, my father also thought about hiring people from China, but due to the language barrier and the cultural differences, hiring people from China it was not feasible. And after all, the solution to this problem is we try to provide better benefits, such as better sales commissions to our employees to a certain level that we can motivate and encourage our employees to work better and harder. And so the outlet steps that my father agrees the most are the step 9. Identify your next 10 customers. Step 12, determine the customer's decision making unit. Step 20, identify key assumptions. And steps 21, test key assumptions. The reason why he chooses step 9 and step 12 is that before you enter any business and market, you must determine what will make your business stand out than the current ones, as well as what makes the customer wants to buy your product instead of other else's. The reason why he agrees with steps 20 and 21 is because it is very important to identify the assumptions that can improve your business, and more importantly, you have to go out investigate and test the assumptions. So here are actually here are two pictures of my father and I going going to this um excavator manufacturer in China. My father had some assumptions on expanding our dealership by selling heavy construction equipments too. Then we actually went to test our assumptions by visiting and talking with the owner of the manufacturer to see whether the assumption is feasible. And the step that my father agrees the least is step 23. Show that the dogs will eat the dog food because he thinks this should be included in the first 5 step of the venture creation. You need to go out and do enough research on the market, the target market, and make sure what's your customer decision making unit. And so here are a couple other steps that my father has struggled with. Map the process to acquire a paying customer. Map the sales process to acquire a customer, as well as to calculate the cost of customer acquisition. So my father was merely struggling identifying any budgetary, regulatory, or compliance hurdles that would slow down our ability to sell our products, our cars. More specifically, and identify. My dad was mostly struggling with identifying hidden obstacles that will inhibit our ability to sell our cars, which really affect on the cash flow of the company. An example I can give is that my father said is that when we importing cars from China to Kazakhstan, um, because there are a lot of corruptions going on in Kazakhstan, we actually we actually have to pay to the like the manager of the costume to let them let them let our cars out of the costume, and as well as reach out to the bank when the customer wants to purchase a car by using a loan with the bank, and we actually have to reach out to the bank and etc. Which really, which my father really didn't think of any of these hidden obstacles. And lastly, the entrepreneur's advice to me on how to best implement Atlas steps are: don't be afraid of things. Um, I'm still young. I'm still young, and there's nothing to lose. If you fall, there's nothing to lose. And the second one is networking and the connections are way more valuable than you think. So build up your do your networking and build up your connections. And you will never know when you will be this. You will never know when this will be used for you in the future. And lastly, identify your assumptions and go test your assumptions. If you have idea, do the research and go out for investigation. Sometimes it's better to go out to see it, observe it, than just doing research online. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. And here's are my references. Thank you very much. Bye.